Good evening, and welcome to the latest version of House Call with Dr. Gigi. I know it's been a while, and I know you have missed this program because we all love Dr. Gigi. She's such a wonderful, wonderful person, and we're so happy to be in partnership with her and the Rodham Institute. And so tonight we're excited to be back, and we have a wonderful program for you this evening. Tonight we're going to be talking about the intersection of art and into our health and wellness. And I know a lot of times we get on here in BlackDoctor.org and we're talking about medications and treatments and all of these things that are very important in terms of our healthcare regimen. But what is also just as important is our mental health, and what role does art, whether it's visual art, whether it's auditory art, whatever type of art, spoken word, whatever type of art that we have part of our lives, what integration does it have in our overall health and wellness? So we've got some wonderful guests tonight. I'm so excited to have. We've got Dr. Erin working with us, and we've got Crowley. She's going to talk about how she utilizes art in terms of the healing power of art. And so I know you didn't come on here to see me, so I'm going to bring on the star of the show, the title of the show, and that is Dr. Gigi. How are you doing this evening?
I am fine, Mr. Ellis, and you are a star. We're all stars. we're all special, right?
We are all special in our own way.
Special, and it's always a delight and a pleasure and an honor to be with you. And you know, I don't know about you, but I am so COVIDed out that when we were talking about topics, I just thought that arts and, you know, health and well-being, it would be such a nice topic. But, you know, I do have to talk a little bit about COVID, but I'm going to share with you where I was this afternoon. You know, we at the Rodham Institute are part of the Black Coalition Against COVID.
Right.
There was actually an incredible panel, a program at Howard University today, which brought the descendants of the Tuskegee men that were enrolled in that treacherous research study that we all heard about. And what they did, first of all, you know, I have to say I was really moved to tears to hear about their stories, to hear about their grandfathers or great-grandfathers in some instances. There's a lot of miseducation and misunderstanding about Tuskegee. These men already had syphilis. Nobody injected them with anything.
Right.
What happened is that treatment was withheld from them.
Yes.
They did not get treatment when treatment was available. And of course, then they developed all the complications of syphilis. And the descendants wanted to make it clear that COVID vaccination is a time that we, all of us collectively, are being included as actually getting vaccinated. Nothing is being withheld. And all of them have gotten vaccinated. And they say, you know, as the descendants of Tuskegee, they don't want, you know, that history to be kind of confused. And they want everybody to get the straight scoop. So I know that they did a fantastic little 2-minute ad that I think we're going to be sharing. And maybe we could even have them here as guests because they're just such amazing human beings. But I will say this, a Delta variant is no joke. Yeah. It is 1,000 times more contagious than the regular COVID. The vaccines continue to protect us. In the state of Maryland, 100% of the people that were hospitalized and died had not been vaccinated. Okay. So we're now seeing the numbers really go up. But with all this stuff, I know I'm stressed out. I know that it's been hard. You know, it's like every time you think, okay, we're going to get past this, and there's a setback. And then this past several years, there's been so much. There's been, of course, the previous administration, the disrespect that we got, right? Of course, COVID, but also the serial murders of Black people. Yeah. And then, of course, now it's a hot summer and all the violence that's happening that around the country. In D.C. here, we've had record numbers of people being killed. And I just, you know, wanted to figure out a way that we can kind of get ourselves recentered. And I don't know about you, Mr. Ellis, but when I feel down, I put on some music. I was listening to Minnie Riperton a little earlier. or whatever music that there
Right.
is, and I instantly feel better. So with that, I hope it's okay if I bring on our guest tonight. Can I do
Yeah,
that?
I just got one quick thing to say about COVID, and that is, I've been researching and just finished writing an article for Black Doctor about COVID in Black nations around the world. Because I know a lot of times we kind of get really U.S. focused. Um,
Mhm.
we know that there's only a small percentage of the African diaspora that actually resides here in the United States, and there are billions around the world of people of African descent. And so when I focused primarily on really looking at the vaccination rates in the continent of Africa, we're talking about 1.2, 1.3 billion people, and they are about 1.5% vaccinated. And so when we're talking about a worldwide pandemic, we can't just view it through the lens of what's happening here in the United States. We have to view it through a worldwide lens, because that's how COVID ended up here. It initiated, or was at least initially started in another country, and because of travel and everything like that, it got to the United States. And so we cannot just say that if we reach herd immunity here in this country, that we are going to be somehow safe. We'll be safer, but not completely safe from COVID. And as we know, we've talked about before, variants get developed when people are unvaccinated. And so we have to really kind of view it through that lens and see it as a worldwide initiative. And so I do want to, shout out to some of the pharmaceutical companies that have stepped up and really have and moved their vaccine production there in the continent of Africa. So it's not all bad, but right now they are at a much lower level because they don't have access, and we're fighting here to get people just to go get it, and it's available to us. And they on that continent, they don't even have it available to them.
That's right.
And we want it, and so we have to think about the perspective that we have. And so I just want our audience, and I know we're about to move into our guests, and I'm looking forward to that. But I just want our audience to kind of get some perspective when it comes to thinking about COVID as a worldwide pandemic.
Well, thank you for that. You're right. We are all interconnected.
Yes.
That's for sure. And I can tell you that my extended family in Egypt has not gotten vaccinated because it's not available. So
Right.
yeah, I mean that's
Right.
that's a real issue. So,
Yeah.
but without further ado, I'd like to bring
Yes.
our guests on this evening. They are both friends, and I've had a chance to meet them and really consider them my friends. We'll do it in alphabetical order. Ms. eBay Crowley. Ms. eBay Crowley is really a very gifted and talented storyteller. And I came to meet her and know about her work, which is really, she works with women who have survived cancer. Okay. And she helps them through scrapbooking tell their story. She's going to tell us more about that. So welcome, Ms. eBay. And then we'll bring along Dr. Aaron Dworkin. Dr. Aaron Dworkin and his wife actually established Sphinx, which is an incredible program that really highlights young classical musicians of color. And I think you just announced the 3 winners this year, and they really promote kids of color, they're not kids, they're young people, youth, to perform in orchestras. I've had the pleasure of seeing them perform. They're unbelievable, really talented. But more recently, he established the art sciences, which he's going to tell us about. And he's got a program every Sunday that you can sign up for, and such interesting topics. So forgive me if I haven't gotten the titles exactly right, and you can add or edit or correct. And I forgot to mention also that Dr. Aaron is on faculty in the School of Music. He's the former dean of the School of Music at the University of Michigan. And Ms. eBay is also from Washington, D.C., or works in Washington, D.C., and she's on the Leadership Council of the Rodham Institute. So welcome. So, let's start with you, Ms. eBay. Can you talk to us a little bit about your program? Oh, maybe we'll go to Dr. Aaron. Dr. Aaron, while we're waiting to get Ms. eBay back, can you tell us a little bit? First of all, good evening. It's good to see you. How are you and your family?
Oh, it is so great to see you, Dr. Gigi, and it's so great to be here with you and Alice and to converse about these types of issues that are so critically important. Family is thanking, especially in these times, doing great. And so just a lot of work to do. Very grateful and appreciative to be able to this type of work.
So please tell us a little bit more about Sphinx, because I may not have described it exactly right, and I want to give it its due.
Sure, no, definitely. So Sphinx is really the international organization. Its underlying mission is transforming lives through the power of diversity in the arts. So that takes a number of different forms. Its original kind of flag program was a national competition for young Black and Latinx string players, but it has early music educational programs that come throughout the year, summer programs across the country. What you just referenced, kind of the highest honor that Sphinx bestows, which is this Medal of Excellence that are awarded in Washington, D.C., as you know, at a very special. And each of those recipients receives a $50,000 arts grant to further their work. And I think one of the things that I just wanted to mention that particular Sphinx does other work, Sphinx Connect, which is the global convening, where Sphinx gathering, over 1,000 of all of the practitioners and thought leaders surrounding diversity in the arts. But with the excellence, the criteria is not just, oh, you're an awesome, amazing, performing art and musician, someone who works. They of course are that, but a critical component is, what are you doing with those talents, with those abilities related to the well-being in your community? That's really the thing, is that just your artistic practice is not enough, but how are you using it to impact community, to impact other people, and to really further our society. So this action between the arts and well-being, the arts and health is critically important to Sphinx.
So yeah, I saw, I've had a chance to firsthand meet these incredible artists, and the work that they do sort of in the community is also just quite inspiring. Can you give us some examples of exactly what some of that work is?
Oh yeah, so no, absolutely. And so we've had, medalists who are committed to and have launched educational programs themselves in cities. And so where they have, launched a program where they're bringing young people who would otherwise not be able to have access, practice an instrument, and are doing that. And other medalists who have taken their art and the practice of other artists to senior centers, to healing centers, hospitals, work like that. We have a past medalist who founded Music Kitchen and is actually bringing the highest level of artists to homeless shelters throughout New York and other states as well, Kelly Hall Tompkins. So there's really a rich breadth of that work that they're doing related to Sphinx. And there's other kind of environments in which work touches on this. I'm honored to serve on the National Council of the Arts, which is the governing council will of the National Endowment for the Arts. And one of, I think, the programs that we're proud of is Creative Forces, and where it is directly looking at the arts and healing, looking at wounded warriors returning home, and how can we utilize the arts not only directly in clinical healing, also in building community and other things that are so critically important to people who have given more than any of us in terms of the defense of who we are as a society.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know, it's interesting when you look at the child has a musical ability and they actually dance and respond to music in utero and certainly before they speak. So, can you tell us sort of about the science of it all and how music is really, for example, hardwired into our brains?
So, well, of course, you're absolutely right, and literally in neuro, we as human beings respond and react to music, and then from the very youngest age, we are responding to and engaging with music. And of course, now the entire, field of therapy, right? So in other words, we know that there are certain things like, for example, the overtone series and how we act. And so, hospitals will utilize this in terms of healing. So we know that the recovery rate will increase a certain amount based on we have certain music playing those types of things. So it isn't just kind of aren't the arts right? Isn't music nice? So we know that, for example, wounded warriors return home when they're able to account their stories, we're able to write them, use the written art form, it impacts them in terms of their healing for those particular issues. And they've actually been able to study that because, as DOD, they don't play around. They're not going to invest in things that don't have a tangible impact. For our wounded warriors, and so they're able to actually discern those types of things. We have obviously therapy and a host of which there's music and healing, and then I would say, in addition to those kind of very very direct ways, one of the things we do through Artful Science, so of course in wonderful partnership with Rodham and with BDO, is that there has unfortunately become this disconnect with science that we've seen in our society is extremely tragic. Sometimes created intentionally by certain people to be able to achieve what a political means, but sometimes unintentionally. And so what we're to be able to do, a lot of times people have been seeing certain aspects of science or medicine just, kind of tuning out or saying, oh, it's something political. But a lot of people are into the arts. So what we wanted to do is develop a show where we would tackle and share some of this extraordinary science, but through the prism of the arts, through the prism of an artist and a person to say, hey, can we actually understand what's going on with this particular issue? So that led to Artful Science, where, for example, Gigi, as you well know, we've been able to get this just horrific differential of life expectancy within seeds and within community. And so a lot of people in our community are aware that this is. And so to be able to talk about that, but understand it from almost the mindset of an artist to get oh, now I see this and in my community, what can I do about it? How can I run?
Mm-hmm. Oh, and it looks like Ms. Crowley has joined us. So happy to see you. And maybe if you can, yes, I can hear you too. So
okay, good.
Please share with us the wonderful work that you do in terms of women who are survivors of cancer.
So eBay Arts is my baby. I'm a retired educator, and as a retired educator, I focus on storytelling. So one of the things that I found is that given the opportunity to visualize story and to be able to control that story in a visual way really makes a difference in the outcome of the expectations of people, regardless to what they're going through. Sometimes it's someone who may be experiencing cancer. Sometimes we work with folks who are experiencing memory loss. Sometimes we're working with folks who have experienced physical traumas or even violence. So creating opportunities, working particularly with women, is so important to the entire family unit. Because once that woman is able to take control of her story and not have that story defined or dictated to her. For example, we worked with women who have been diagnosed with cancer. One of the things that I found to be very enlightening is for women to create images of what that looks like in their body. How do they see that which is attacking the inside that they really can't see other than sometimes with an X-ray or with certain images that doctors are providing? But already in their minds, there is an image of what that looks like. And being able to put that on paper in a visual way sometimes, not a fancy way, just simple drawings, can help a woman to be able to see what it is that she's fearing most. And so using storytelling with the visual arts, one of the things that we focus on in eBay Arts is helping people to understand that the same way that they have a preconceived image in their mind about what that disease or that experience looks like, or even if it's a real experience, not just something that someone has told them that they're going through, but this actual pain that they feel, that part of the storytelling process is the freedom and the ability to come up with alternative outcomes and to be able to also visualize those alternative outcomes, to visualize that healing and to create that visual image that they can focus on as part of that healing process. So I find that storytelling is a venue for healing because it gives the individual control of the story. Yeah. Sometimes, you want me to stop?
No. I'm in it.
Okay. So the storytelling, we want to acknowledge that there are real experiences, there are real fears, and there's a real visualized outcome for how it can be better. And sometimes there are multiple ways that it can be better. Part of the storytelling in working with women is to help them to understand that they're not alone in this process. So part of the visualizing and the visual creation is the ability to also identify individuals and people or groups that provide support to them, and to be able to also identify ways that those individuals or people or groups provide that support so they can begin to have realistic expectations, because sometimes there are people in our lives who want to be helpful, but there are times that they cannot carry the load. So being able to understand that as well, and to be able to identify other people in our community that can help us carry that load is also a part of that healing process. So that visual imagery is really important. I brought with me one image today I wanted to show you. We were working with a group of women and they were doing storytelling, and they created these visual images about home and safe places. And I thought that this image right here, or I don't know if I can get it in front of the camera. There it is. Yep. Was a very telling image, because look at that. What do you see? You know, you see this really manicured empty space. And I thought that in working with this individual, to have them not only create this image, but then to create additional images of filling up that empty space with a support system that they could rely on to help them through the process. So we're really working, more importantly than anything else, with owning our own stories and owning the outcomes, even if those outcomes sometimes may not always be what it is that we want it to be, but then feeling empowered enough to be able to say, okay, this really very well may be the very end of this story. And what I would like to see next for my life, even if it's not here on earth, is, or for my family is, and being able to know that it's okay to visualize beyond that physical being at the time that we're going through the physical life. So that's the work that we're doing.
You know, it's interesting that you bring that up, and counselors do this all the time, but they do it mainly with children in terms of drawing, because we do it with children because children typically don't have the vocabulary to be able to articulate how they're feeling. But if you say, hey, draw a house, draw a tree, those are some of the things that we would do with children. And then you could interpret the house or the tree or whatever the drawing was into how that child is feeling. And then you can provide the language for them to be able to kind of tell you how they're doing. But when you just put that powerful image up there, when you're talking about somebody that might be going through cancer, that might be going through and be in an abusive relationship where they feel like they're trapped that they can't get out of, having that ability to draw a picture can tell more about how they're feeling than what they might be, because as adults, we learn to be really reserved and hold our cards really close to the vest, but it comes out through our pictures. It also could be another thing in terms of that storytelling, of being able to have that control to write your own ending, which is very, very important in terms of how our positive outcomes can be shaped. Is by writing our own ending gives you a sense of control, whether you've got cancer, whether you've got hepatitis or diabetes or something, especially the more terminal illnesses. If you feel like I can write my own ending to this story, even metaphorically, that could have a tremendous healing power for them moving forward. So I think it's wonderful work. I'm just excited to hear. As you know, Dr. Gigi knows I'm a counselor by training, so I was really excited to see that how important and how impactful that work you're having is on women in particular.
Yeah, and that's where our biggest focus is women and children primarily.
Yeah. I would say that sort of going to our African traditions, if you think about it, arts are infused in everyday life. It's not sort of an afterthought, right? I think about, I happen to be Muslim, but I love to go to the Temple of Praise Church in Southeast, which is a beautiful congregation. And when I think about when I go and experience not only the wonderful sermons that are given, but also the music and the singing and the chanting, that really is an experience which automatically I feel better. It also is a time to kind of release. You see people crying, they letting go, they have the support of the rest of the community. So arts is not something that, I've got to pick a time to go to the museum. Arts is something that is living, breathing, and that we experience all the time. Dr. Aaron, can you jump in here?
Oh, absolutely. And one of the things that we talk about, especially with young people, because sometimes people, a lot of you're doing is you're trying to bring classical music to young people of color. That's just like not part of the culture. And I'm like you clearly did in our concerts and our sessions in schools and things like that, because it's obviously much different. The truth, there's not only engagement, there's excitement, there's pride. There is a sense of who they are being expressed through instruments, and so a couple of things. One, that was my experience. So Kevin was quite ostracized because of a whole myriad background of culture and all those things, and especially at the age of 10-year-old, 11 years old in Hershey, Pennsylvania. With one black family, I had my afro playing the violin, and last name working, very ostracized. But my violin, I could speak, I could share the ways that I was feeling in ways that I definitely could not productively, verbally, or in a way. And so arts was a way to share myself, not only healing to myself, but also to others. In a way that they wanted to age and kind of hear my musical story. But also we always tell young people, like, classical music, like you've already been hearing classical music. It's in your cartoons. It was already there. So all these tunes you are already listening to and have been part of your life, and you've been being impacted, affected by it without necessarily going, I'm listening to classical music right now, and also getting there is tons and tons of classical music and games and movies and all of these other things. So while young people are doing a lot of these things, there is no disconnect. There is no, oh, here's the arts over here to go to a fancy hall and dress a certain experience. The arts envelop us, and it's just a matter of then looking and saying, are we being represented in all of those art forms? What is the diversity of the people who are posing the music that is in and are associated with our cartoons, our movies, our game systems, etc. Then we can see whether our voice is actually heard and how can we be better represented.
Mm-hmm. Oh, you're on mute, Mr. Ellis. There you go.
I caught it right before I started talking. I think what you're really touching on there, Dr. Dworkin, is just about how art is defined, right? And if we let others define it and for us, and then we've already set ourselves at a deficit. So art is defined for you, and how art moves you individually. So you were able to express yourself. You spoke through your violin. I found myself as a kid writing, right, and being able to express myself through poetry and written forms of expression. When I would go back and read it, I would experience those emotions again. I could go through that and focus my emotions through that writing, a cathartic experience for me. So I definitely, but you cannot let someone else define what art is for you. You have to define what it is for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Alice, that is such a critically important piece, because often people try and say, oh, this is art, that is not art, etc. And that is absolutely so true. And when it was about 12 years old, I was 2, and my father helped me get a pickup, and I put a pickup on my violin bridge to electrify my violin. And right in that moment, then I started playing my friend Grappelli. I started getting into some jazz. I started, looking at different other, music and translating it. When I got to Michigan, I was, transcribing Boys to Men, Mariah Carey, Walter of Fantasy of stuff for violin, for string quartet, all these types of things. That it is so important that you have to say, is my artistic expression, and what are the artistic expressions of my culture, and how do I engage in that, and not let someone else define. I could not agree more.
Mm-hmm. And I also want to add that in working with women, we have a quilters group, we have a doll makers group, we have bookmakers groups. There are so many art forms, and oftentimes during that healing process, the biggest thing that we want women and anyone who's healing to go through is time to relax the mind and feel that they don't have to worry. So sometimes being able to create something, and if it's stitching because their mother was a seamstress, not for any particular reason to come up with a big art show. This is not about creating art shows. This is about using the arts as a tool to relax the mind and the spirit, and to give people permission to be able to express and represent themselves.
And before we came on air, I was saying, I say this all the time, not just because you're your guest, but really the arts are the way that we are going to heal through the collective trauma that we as a society, as people of African heritage have gone through. For you in the African diaspora, obviously it's centuries. For us that are from the African continent, just sort of more recently after coming here. But I would say that these last 5 years in particular have been really, really tough. And earlier today, the Rodham Institute paired up with Children's Hospital, because there's a crisis among young people. They are harming themselves, and in some cases taking their own lives. So what we did with this group of kids for about 8 weeks, they were actually, today was the culmination, so we got to see their work, a photo voice project. So they took pictures in their community of assets and things that they would like to see, and it was amazing. They said, this is what they were saying, like, wow, I never even paid attention to the beauty of the trees and the flowers, and God, I didn't even realize there's a park. But that the arts have a way of really transforming what you see, I believe. And in transforming what you see and what you're experiencing through the lens of the arts, that is transformational as an individual, but just as importantly for the family and the community. So for either one of you, I would ask, do we know, are some forms of art more healing than others? Or, as you were sort of alluding to, Ms. Ibe, is it the process of going through it that's really healing? Or what do we know? What do we know about the science for either one of you?
I'm not a scientist, I'm an artist. And what I see is that when people are engaged in
We're all
art,
scientists, by the way, Ms. Ibe. We're all scientists.
Okay.
Just like we're all artists.
Okay, good. I like that. So what I see in working with kids and with adults is that people who have something tangible to do, write, sew, bake, garden, play the violin, that the doing is healing. It's like it's a focus in life that's not on the pain or the difficulty. And so I see it, but I don't have data.
I would say that we were talking, I was thinking about in terms of art being the equalizer, right? Because some of us are more eloquent in terms of our ability to speak. Some of us are more athletic, but we can all express ourselves in some artistic way, right? And so when you're having a group of people and you say, hey, take this paper and pencil and crayons or glue or whatever it is and go express yourself. You have 20 people in a room, you've got 20 different forms of expression, and they're all equal because that's how that person is choosing to express themselves. Versus if you have 20 people in a room and you say, okay, I need you to get up and do a speech, well, then there's going to be some judgment, right? This person speaks better. If we're all going to sing, you're going to turn me off because I can't sing all day. And so there's going to be some judgment associated with that. But if we can find a way for people to express themselves that puts us all on an even plane, then you can find the true expression, that true gift that someone has, that's what's in them, and that connection that they have to arts, and could, jumpstart their life and really kind of say, oh, this is, how I can really blossom as a person because I'm not athletic or artistic or whatever.
Yeah. Just to build off of that certainly, absolutely, the science shows that there are certain types of music, especially in terms of classical music. If you have Baroque music, things like that you absolutely associated with reduced blood pressure, slowing of the heart rate, and definitely reduction of anxiety. And those types of things. So there certainly is, and we have an entire industry of music therapy, music therapists who are really experts in this particular area. In addition to that, Dr. Gigi, too, you referenced, where this truly place in time in our country, and then this level of divisiveness is extraordinary, and there are so many divides. And one of the things that I love about the arts is that you can have people, you can have one who is absolutely obsessed with our former president, and someone who is obsessed with our current president. And you put them in a room, they're not going to be able to curse, they're not going to be able to connect, and it will be an antagonism, and then wondering how are we both in the same country, in the same society. But you take those two people and you bring them to shared artistic experience, a concert, dance performance, theater, etc., and you see them experience that together. Those man-made barriers evaporate temporarily, and it's not that it solves the political divides, but what it does is it shows us what we share. And then I believe one of the critical things the arts can serve us as a society is to show us, demonstrate to each other that shared humanity, so that when we have those political discussions or economic discussions, et cetera, they're done from a place of greater empathy, greater understanding and divisiveness.
Well, you know, to that point, from a science standpoint, what I find is fascinating. Do you know that when we go to the movie theater and we are sitting collectively, that our brain waves start to sync? So that collective and that community, even with people that we don't know, actually there is physiologic changes that happen. And one of the things that I think that other cultures and societies have a much deeper appreciation of than we do here in sort of westernized or mainstream American society, if you will, is that we feel each other much more and we impact each other much more. I mean, you know, we say we're on the same wavelength, you know, the vibe that we talk about, or I feel you, you know, I feel you, I feel your pain, or that's all sort of within that. And so music becomes that, music, the arts is that way that we can connect. And I feel that, if you think about what has happened in our society, we are out of sync. We are really out of sync. And
Absolutely.
The arts are a way of kind of bringing us back into sync, which I think is so important. Ms. Ibe, you look like you were going to say something.
I was going to say that recently, you know, we're talking about some of the dramatic events that have occurred. And we started having conversations with a small group of healthcare providers, psychologists, social workers, educators, about why Black Lives Matter. What was most interesting in this dialogue to me was the number of white women who talked about their pain related to current events. They wrote beautiful stories about their experience in terms of their awareness of the African American experience and their role in it. We put all of that together, and I want to show you really quickly. We created this book, and it's called, let me see if I can get it on screen. It's called Bearing Witness. Ooh, there it is, I think. And what's interesting about this book is that it's made out of mixed media and glass, but more importantly, it's made up of a variety of stories of people who talked about their experience. But in the end, we ended up with, even though folks did beautiful writing, we had no words in it. You know, we just had the images that conveyed the experience and the pain that people were talking about. And then being able to, at the end, come up with ideas about what healing looked like. So I want to just kind of give you a sense of, you know, there are so many ways to approach storytelling and community healing and community engagement around healing. And I just wanted to share that one example with you.
Yes. No, I think it's a excellent book. That was a phenomenal piece of work, and I would say also, as people of African descent, especially here in America, and that complete attempt at disconnecting us from our origins, right? So, and part of that origin is that artistic history, and so when we're here in America, and so it is found a way to manifest itself, particularly as we talked about in church. We see a lot of artistic expression in church, through music, through acceptable ways, but I you know, that the ways that society, as we talked about earlier, say, oh, that's art and that's not art. But I think what we've got to do as a people in terms of that healing component is say, okay, we're not going to define it. What we're going to do is we're going to put you in a room full of instruments. We're going to put you in a room full of magazines and construction paper and whatever, and go create. And then as a collective, use that creativity and that creation as a way to connect us. And so we can move forward better, stronger together as a people, because we have found that universal connecting point, which can be art.
Mm-hmm. And you know, there is just a mural that went up. I haven't had a chance to go and see it here in Southeast Washington, that was painted, which is another way of kind of bringing community together to express themselves. And actually, for a while, there was a wall where there were pictures of the young people that were shot and killed as sort of homage, as a shrine for people to have a place to sort of never forget these lives lost, and to be able to have as a constant reminder. But Dr. Aaron, I'd like for you to talk a little bit about the Kennedy Center NIH study called Sound Health, and what that's about, because clearly there are people sort of at even the traditional folks, such as scientists, if you will, that are really appreciating the role of the arts, and in this particular case, music, on the development and the healing of the brain.
I just want to make I wasn't muted still. So yes. And unfortunately, I wish I was a little bit more, kind of an expert in particularly what they're doing, and that partnership with NIH and the Kennedy Center. What I would say is that these types of programs that are bringing together medical institutions, hospitals, and especially agencies in concert, no pun intended, with arts organizations are really critically important, and are revealing a lot of things that just simply either only knew intuitively, and or are just providing a greater foundation, so that it's showing the medical evidence for why these things are so critically important. And one thing I wanted to just make sure with what you're saying earlier, Dr. Gigi, that and reminds me with Sound Health and what they're doing, the agency, and stuff we're doing with the NEA, is that we are a rarity in terms of advanced nations not having the equivalent of a minister of arts, minister of art. And so I just wanted to kind of take this little opportunity to nudge and push. We've been trying to advocate for years, but for that there should be a secretary level position, a cabinet level position in our government for and or related to arts and culture. The A is an agency. We do certain work. Having someone in a position and a role at that level will enable more initiative, like Sound Health, like Create Forces, and like another any number of these other initiatives that are connecting our arts institutions with government agencies, with the work of government. And being able to demonstrate the activity between and the arts, but also actually further it programmatically so people can benefit from.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot. I'll just summarize Sound Health very briefly. And I would really encourage sort of the viewing audience to visit the site, because it's pretty incredible. I'll give you just one story. So there was this young man, he was going snowboarding without a helmet, slammed into a tree, like 40 miles an hour, and had just severe brain injury. He was in a coma. His family didn't think that he would live. He woke up, but just was unable to even speak. And so this musician started to work with him. So first he started to sing, then he started to speak, then he started to walk. And it just showed you sort of the power of music in helping to rewire the brain. The other clip that they have also on that website is showing a man with Parkinson's walking, very stiffly and about to fall. He turns around, he goes to the door and then turns around. But when there's a metronome beat, he walks with no problem. So I just find that fascinating. They also had a young man, I think a hip hop artist actually, and they showed his brain in an MRI when he was performing. And then they did another MRI with him thinking about performing and the different parts of the brain that lit up. And so for anybody that might be interested, it's called Sound Health. It's from the Kennedy Center, NIH. And also, I think it's University of South Florida, correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Aaron. They've got actually an arts and medicine program where you can get degrees, and just, they're doing phenomenal work. And then, of course, there's Arts for the Aging, which really looks specifically at different art forms being brought to senior residents that may have either cognitive or physical decline. And I'll tell you, I'll share the story there. I happen to be on the boards. It's a not-for-profit. I don't get paid any money for it. But when I was deciding whether to be on the board, I took my sister with me, and she's an artist. And so we went to a nursing home, and this particular 1 hour, whatever, interaction workshop was called Cooperate with an opera singer who went in. So they wheeled out these patients, you know, people who were completely out of it, some that were nonverbal, and this person, this tenor, started to perform. Do you know, by the end, and the staff were saying, they saw people singing that had not said a word in years. We saw people conducting. By the end of that, my sister and I were crying because it was so moving to see firsthand the impact of art. And my sister became an artist for them. And so her medium is watercolors and acrylics. And she would go in and, you know, would hear the stories from people who had dementia or Alzheimer's. But we also have in our family something fun. We have musical parties. So what's nice about it, nobody's on the phone, nobody's looking at these things. And everybody has to have a turn. And even if we're not great, we do something. So sometimes you can see hidden talents. And then the other thing that she does, which I think is very cool, she'll have all of us sitting. This is multi-generational. She'll give us small pieces of paper, and then she'll just give us one paintbrush that we each pass around with one color. And she'll do that and do another color. And then at the end, we all share. So, you know, art is, I don't know, art is life. I can't imagine my life without music. So with that, maybe we'll go and ask each of you what artistic form, Ms. eBay, is your favorite? No?
We'll start with Aaron, Dr. Aaron.
What is your favorite art form that you like, that you know?
Yeah, so of course I'm probably a little biased, being a violinist since the age of 5. So probably, you know, there is some aspect of violin performance and orchestra. You know, the power and weight of sound envelops you when you are in orchestra hall. It can just truly be transformational. And transformative. But with that said, I've been able to do a lot of work with spoken word art, which is what I've been doing more in my own practice. And I found that I really love this connectivity of using the spoken word along with intense musical environment, combining those in ways can be very transformative. So I definitely those, and also just to add, because that the work is so important, you know, with the Kennedy Center and Health, also encourage people to check out Creative Forces on the NEA's website, because people can engage some of the connective work that's happening in terms of bringing artistic experiences, live or virtual, to wounded warriors. And then the University of Florida, I mean, they actually a center for arts and medicine that we're, you know, of course, able to partner with, and so they are doing some extraordinary work as well. So while I love and I love myself in the artistic practice moments, and at least at this point, violin and spoken word is definitely there, part of it. Also just love the research and some of the interesting labs that exist in the work that they're doing.
Well, Ms. eBay, what's your favorite artistic expression?
Well, I really love the visual arts. I'm a sculptor, and I find it to be very meditative to create a three-dimensional form and to kind of embed it with story. But the truth of the matter is that the most healing form of art for me, I think, is music. And I think for me, it's gospel music. I grew up in the church, and the wailing and the shouting and the traditional organ. I mean, it's so powerful, you know. I mean, the organ talks to me. Um, so I think that music really is, if I were to talk about where I find my greatest healing. I remember about 20 years or more ago, I had a serious surgery, and someone brought me a CD when I was in the hospital. And I listened to that same CD over and over and over and over. I think it was The Sound of Blackness.
Oh, but, yes.
That got me through. And so I think that sometimes we have a form that we really express ourselves in, but there are also other forms that communicate to us and help us to be able to reach our high place. So for me, I would think that's it.
I believe in the power. But you know, it's interesting.
That's right.
Think about it. Right. When I was breaking up with somebody, I'd listen to these sad songs, and it was just like a way of like getting over the breakup. You're crying, and he's left me, and he's this and that. Right. So arts are something that really we live and breathe.
You know, I think with the music, I'm probably would say music, but you know, and I'm kind of a mixed bag because I'm part of this whole hip hop, generation and era. But if you ask me what kind of music I like the best, it's probably old school R&B, where Earth, Wind and Fire, Wonder, that really funk era where there was creativity, it was free flowing, it almost felt like George Clinton and Parliament kind of felt like it was jazz and R&B put together that was really creative, and just I would get lost in the music, because they'd be playing for all these 10, 15-minute sets and 10, 15-minute songs, and you could kind of get lost and hear all of the different layers that they put into the music. That was so inspirational. I couldn't do one lick of it. I did learn how to play the drums, but that's about it in terms of my musicality. But just understanding the layers that they put into that music, and so and how it bursts. When I hear hip hop, I hear a lot of that in the bass line. I hear a lot of that in the drums and things like that that they use as the bass line for hip hop. I hear that, and I would go back and say, "Oh," and my wife gets, she gets tired of me going, "Oh, that beat right there for the hip hop song, that is they took that from this song."
Exactly.
And I go find a song and I play it for her, and she's like, "Yeah, okay, yeah, they got it." But I could hear that would excite me, and I would find my creativity being ignited when I would listen to that. And I would go and express myself in my way, which is more written form, but just that music.
Well, look, if we're going to talk about music, that was live music with live musicians that played it, not sampling or synthesizing. So for me, my artistic outlet is actually music and dancing. I find that, and all the music that you just mentioned, and there's a place here in DC that we should all go to when we can travel and all that. It's called the Bethesda Blues Jazz and Supper Club. And what they do is they bring old acts, like they went and saw Denise Williams there. They have had Earth, Wind and Fire tributes with some people actually from the band. And the great thing is that you can also dance and have dinner. And I'm not getting paid by this group for any endorsement, but music, it's like, for me, it's like, the spirit really moves you. And I think the thing that's particularly special for me about our generation's music was the meaning of the music. You know, I was having my niece, who's 13, listen to What's Going On by Marvin Gaye. And I'm like, I said, are you listening to the words? You know, are you listening to the music? But the words, I said, nothing's changed, right?
Right.
And so there is also that, of course, Billy Paul is one of my other favorites. And we can't forget Bootsy Collins.
Oh, Bootsy Collins, and you know, and you just learn about the drummers and the bassists that got through that with Larry Graham, and so it gets we could go on for another hour.
Yes, we could. Yes, we could.
I do want to give our guests one last, opportunity to put their final stamp on tonight's discussion. This has been a wonderful cathartic experience for me, just being able to talk about something other than COVID and other things. But really, so we'll go in reverse order since we started with eBay. We'll start with you, Dr. Dworkin. How are you?
Oh yeah, well, I think I just tied into what we were talking about, thinking about forms of the arts. Actually, one of the things where I love music is in the soundtracks to films. And so we had and we're actually going to be doing the premieres, in-person premieres of An American Prophecy, which is the film that I worked on this year. Is all about a cast are also all healthcare workers of the pandemic, but the music was critically important. And so basically we have a constant track. There's almost never a moment where there's 5 to 10 seconds without music the entire film. And so this role that music can play shaping our experiences, and the role of sounds in films is just yet another way that it fills our lives, that a lot of times we may not be thinking, but you come out of a movie feel a certain way. And if the music had been there, you had a completely different experience. So I just love that, and I'm so appreciative to both of you for having this conversation and for engaging arts and in partnership with arts organizations, and obviously the partnerships we're able to do, with things like Artful Science. So just thank you all for your amazing leadership.
Just think about Star Wars and just hearing that Empire music, right? And you know that you felt that ominous, so you hear that march of the Empire, and you knew something bad is about to happen, and you would feel the tension, and you didn't need to have a word said, just hearing that music. You're absolutely right. Soundtracks drive.
They wouldn't have been people in Empire with that music. It would have been like, oh, they're not so bad. Then you hear the music.
Yeah, absolutely. Miss eBay. Oh, did we left it?
There you go.
There you go.
I just want to thank you all for having me. This has been delightful. I think that one of the things that I would like to share with the audience is tell your story. Find a way, whether it's verbally or whether it's performing it or whether it's, drawing it, writing a poem, but tell your story because it matters. You matter. We all matter. We all have a story to tell. And our creativity, the way we create ourselves by the way we express ourselves. So to express yourself for me to express myself makes me more alive. And then there's and I love, all of the things that we can archive, like music and art and videographies and things of that nature, because it leaves a living record after we're gone. And people just appreciate knowing who we are. And so I say, find a way to document your story. Thank you all for having me.
No, this has been wonderful. Dr. Gigi, you never cease to amaze all of us with your ideas in terms of what type of programming we're going to do here. And so this was a wonderful. So I want to give one shout out to Ms. Aldi Lewis. I hope I'm pronouncing your first name right. So she has been wonderful in terms of hanging with us this entire program and just really, catching on. And so she's looking for contributors, right? So she's already been inspired and she's already been doing her thing. And so, you know, just to see that there are people out there that are looking for ways to, you know, show art and continue to put art into society, because you're absolutely right that it is the great equalizer. It is that thing that connects us all, is an appreciation of art. If we can find that common ground, we can kind of heal some of the divisions that we've had over these past several years. And so art is going to play a key role in the connection. Art could be food. You know, I tend to cook. That's kind of a way I express myself. I go out there and I make a good meal, and I want it to look good because that's my art. And so creating those meals, that's another way of connecting. When we go to those restaurants, we're sharing a meal with somebody. We can always find a way to connect. So really, as we end this program, Dr. Gigi, you're a saint on this planet. And I will say that find that space. In echoing Ms. eBay, find that thing that defines you. And I will add the one thing onto it is find how you can connect that to other people. And then that will be your healing, and that'll be the way that we can all move forward together as the United States of America. So I thank you all for joining us this evening. I look forward to joining us in 2 weeks again with House Call on Dr. Gigi. So all of you all, to everybody that's watched us and stayed with us this evening, have a good evening, and we'll see you next time.